G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. We're the AFL Fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the less knowns and the players who are going to bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. My name's Hef and this week we're talking about the Rucks and I've brought my good mate Geordie DeSena into the studio to talk about him. How you going, mate?
I'm going good. How are you? Feel like I haven't seen you for a while.
I know, I've been just stuck in the studio really, just been making content, recording stuff, building all the premium resources. Got a new one coming out this year, so putting a bit of time into that and all that, trying to juggle school holidays and parenting and not lumping all the parenting onto my partner and stuff like that. It's been a pretty busy time, but lights at the end of the tunnel, school holidays in this week.
Next week,
so it goes back to school. So I'll have a bit more time for not only catching up with some people, but also doing more work for the listeners and getting the podcast sorted. What's been happening with you? You've been doing a few gigs, been on the trains again and all that sort of stuff?
I have got back yesterday from the train. So yeah, they were really awesome. It's good to be back though and get into fantasy really and trades and keen to see some match sim, go check out training as well. And I feel like at the start of Jan before I went away, there's a few people interested with trades, but now I feel like 2 weeks later people are sending me trade requests, getting into it. So pretty keen for the season.
Speaking of your gigs, you said you did a few across the cricket when it was in Adelaide, and lots of people, Keeper League and Pod listeners coming up to say good day. So
yes,
that's good to hear.
I did. I think 4 or 5 actually, and I messaged you. So really good to see people out and about and come up and say that. And if anyone,
if you ever see Geordie at a gig, come say good day.
Yeah, come say hey and
talk fantasy.
Talk fantasy. I love it, as you know. So
you are a bit of a fantasy nuffy, that's for sure.
Definitely.
All right, we are talking about Rucks today, but before we get into that, I just want to plug the Keeper Fantasy app, the platform. It's back for 2026, and basically, we use it in all our leagues. It's it's the best one to actually use for keep leagues. It's actually built for long term, the running of keep leagues long term, and it has all the best tools and stuff like that. There's a lot of new features this year. There's an improved draft room. You can add priority picks and all that sort of stuff to your team. There's some other new things, plus some other cool stuff that's coming eventually that they've hinted about. Haven't really dropped just yet, but it's coming. So, if you want to get serious about your AFL Fantasy Keep Leagues, support Ryan Power. He's built this awesome platform for us. And, go check out keeperfantasy.com. While we're working on this sort of plug stuff, I've got the mock draft simulator is now out for AFL Fantasy. My plan today is to actually get the Supercoach one up and running as well, so I'll try to get that happening today as well. But the spreadsheets came out last week for both AFL Fantasy and Supercoach. The community ranks are up, the breakout track is up, the draftee fantasy guide is up. I'm going to bring out the individual ranking tool this week as well, so that's going to come out for the users. I'll try to get a super. You've been using it a bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I want to fully dive in a lot more. But
it is available on the website now for the people that know where to find it, but it's a bit hidden because it's got a few more tweaks and stuff that I want to do it. But there's a few gold members out there already using it, and the feedback's been good. So I'm looking forward to open that up to everyone in the coming week. I want to get my ranks out as soon as possible as well. So they're coming soon. Pretty much my general ranks are 90% done, but I got to do the rebuilding ones, the contending runs, all the comments, all that sort of stuff. So I got a bit of work ahead of me. So that's what I'm knuckled down to, but just giving people a bit of an update, because I think probably 3 or 4 times a day I'm asked, am I doing ranks again this year? And yes, I am, but they're coming. All right, coming early Feb. Same time as last year. I think it's the first or second week of Feb. They usually come out, and they'll be there at the same time this year. Anyways, Rucks, let's get stuck into it. This is probably going to be a short, sharp, shiny pod just because there's less Rucks to actually talk about this one. So we usually do an extra episode or a bonus episode at the end of this podcast. This week we probably won't talk about extra players. We might just go through our top 10 ruck ranks or something like that to give the members something extra to listen to. But anyways, let's get stuck in. The first thing we're going to talk about though is the rules. Do you want to go through what the actual changes are, Geordie?
Yeah, well, there's quite a few, and it's really hard to tell what's going to happen. And I'm so keen to look at the preseason games, so I think we're going to get a pretty good gauge at what happens. Who knows? Maybe nothing really changes too much. But basically, the big one is the bounce is gone, so that won't be there in the centre bounce. And there's also the ruling of the ruckman can't cross the line. So with the bounce, you can't cross the line there. There's going to be...
With the ball up, you mean?
With the ball up, sorry. Yeah, I keep getting confused.
Yeah, it's so hard to get rid of the language, isn't it?
It's like centre bounce. It'd be CBAs, it'd be CB, use or
Yeah,
I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, that's true. I didn't even think of that.
yeah, probably just keep CBAs anyway.
The throw-in from the boundary are gone. The
Yep.
ball-ins.
Yes.
Well, sorry, between the arcs if it's on the end of a disposal, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's still like a sort of a off hands or like sort of like a rush
contested.
behind contested.
Yeah.
It will still be thrown in, but
Yeah.
they only say there's about 3 less a game.
Yeah.
So it might not be too much. It just
That's 3 on average though, but that
Yeah.
could mean that some games there's 9 less and some
Yes.
games there's 1 less. Like
And I feel like the wingers are just gonna get that plus like that kick on the wing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if whether you get a +1 if it's a free kick or if the player that's kicked it out loses a -3.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
So it might
there
be
with
a
Phils.
few points there thrown around.
Yeah.
But like, my thing is like someone like Errol Goulden who plays on the wing, I feel like he's just going to run and get that extra. Like he might get an extra 3 a game.
Yeah, true, because he's going to be the first one there. Yeah, that's a good point. I think the other one is there's no nominations for rucks now, so the umpires can essentially just throw the ball straight up, so they're not going to wait for rucks. Because they're saying, like, they've shown some footage, like they're waiting up to kind of 30, 40, almost a minute sometimes for rucks to actually get to the contest type thing. So if like ruckmen are going to need to be fit to get to every contest really when they're in the ruck these days.
Yeah, and we could probably talk about who we might think might get that. Like whether do they use a midfielder just for like some of them, like a Patrick Cripps, he did it a couple of times.
Port used to use Ollie Wines.
Yeah,
that could happen.
Like,
That could even set the death of the ruckman, but we won't get too catastrophic here. But I think the biggest thing for the AFL is what they're pushing this year is they want less stoppages, less stop time again. So that will probably mean less. They're trying to reduce the number of ball ups and probably give away free kicks and things like that to kind of get the ball moving in the opposite direction as much. So this might have an impact on some of the rucks. So I don't know. Let's kind of break it out. Like, do you think there's going to be situations where like backup rucks might be used ahead of main rucks because they suit a more athletic profile? So I'm thinking of people like Witts, where Moyle might be a bit more athletically able these days because he's not as old. Could we see like transitions and things happen on the back of this, do you reckon?
Potentially, and I think Witts is, when you think about Witts, he's that sort of, he just seems like that guy that's probably going to be the most affected by these rules. So it's like, well, yeah, maybe they do put a Moyle in who's 23. Again, it's so hard to tell. Like, I think once we see a game or two, we're going to get a really good sense of what's actually going to happen. Maybe
I feel like the players the rucks that can't jump are going to be a little bit affected because we've already seen in the preseason that Riley O'Brien has been trying to kind of just do his normal game and see what's going to get paid as a free kick, and because he's talking Lachlan McAndrew, he's taller than him, he can jump better than him. He's effectively useless now.
And he's trying different things, and he's given away heaps of frees.
Yeah.
The umpire's going, no, you crossed the line there, you've done this.
Yeah.
And he says he doesn't know what he's
can and can't do. Yeah, if you can't jump, it feels like if you can't jump, you can't really do anything.
Yeah.
Like at the ruck.
He says the only way he can maybe is wrestle someone at like a throw in, which are getting reduced anyway around the ground.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's
a bit tricky for some of those rucks. So that's kind of like a bit of a flag or a red flag even straight up that, we might see a few rucks be shifted on or moved if they can't adapt quickly to these rules. I think the good part is they've kind of known about them for a bit longer now. So like, I think the last changes to the ruck rules, which was the straight arm block was allowed. They only announced that in like February. So a lot of they couldn't really practice for it and train for it. At least now like a few rucks have actually trained for it and got to it. So that's just one thing to actually think about. There was actually an excellent article put up by Vams on X, and I think it was cross-posted to the DT Talk website. But go out and check it out. But this was like the real interesting point of it, because like I think of players that can't jump as like Tristan Cherry, he kind of wrestles in the ruck. He really engages. He doesn't really go for the hit out, and a lot of his points kind of end up being like on the back of like tackles at the stop. So it's like tap it down to his feet, opposition ruckman pick it up, and he's just there to tackle him and force another repeat stoppage, or he'll wrestle, push the other ruck out the way, grab the ball and handball it out or kick it out type thing. And so automatically I think if there's going to be less stoppages, he scores poorer, But then in Vam's article, he actually noted that North Melbourne had more stoppages in 2025 than they did in 2024 for him to actually score at. But his scoring went down last season. So the numbers kind of point to less stoppages and more transitional points is better for Tristan Cherry. Now, I don't know if that's a good, like, it makes sense and the data kind of does support it. The only issue is that like the data comes from Jaden Popowski and DFS that he's used, and it doesn't really state what a transitional point is, because like the only stoppage points there are ball ups, ball ins, and hit outs. I think they were the 3 categories that they looked at. And like, where does a tackle fit? Is that a transitional point, or is it does it count as a stoppage point? Because if it's a transitional point, he's getting those at the stoppages. He's not chasing blokes down around the ground. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
He's not taking marks around the ground. He averages 2 marks per game. So I feel like a lot of those transitional points are tackle points at the stoppage. So I feel like those numbers might be a little bit skewed, but like I'm not knocking Vams' article, because with the data that's presented him and the way it's set out, he's analysed it perfectly. You can make that deduction and that's fine. But when I look at it though, like Cherry only dropped like, 2 kicks per game last season, and I guess the things like centre clearances were like a big drop in his numbers, like not taking it out the ruck from the centre as much, and I just feel like that may decrease even more this year with the changes to the ruck rules and the engagement and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Do you think like with that centre clearance, like, North Melbourne maybe got better, the midfielders around them, or the game style, instead of him just doing that, is it the midfield got better and that changes that?
Do you know what I think the biggest factor was? He was injured for the first half of the season.
He did have that hamstring.
Yeah, like he just wasn't laying as many tackles at the stoppages. You look at towards the end of the season, he's laying, I think one game he had 18 tackles or something, like something ridiculous. But like I said, like I still think that those tackles come from being at the stoppage and also being the type of ruckman that doesn't clear the ball away from himself. He keeps it knocks it down close to himself so he can tackle if the opposition does get it. And I think some of the ruck rules might, if you have to basically jump now, he's just going to get jumped over and the ball's going to get tapped away from him where he can't lay those tackles and things like that. I know it's very, very hard to tell, like you said, without seeing a game and how it's actually going to work out. But like I said, that Rob stuff doesn't sound promising if he can't do anything and win a hit out or keep the ball like anywhere in his vicinity and get a touch. Like it's going to be very tricky. And he's a 90 average guy, he's most people's like, they've got him as R1, like, in their team.
So if Cherry went at 105 last year, you're potentially thinking maybe comes back a bit. Like I said, I don't know. Like, because I think if he gets more points in transitional play, and I looked at the numbers, he basically averaged, I think it was 2 less kicks and 1 less mark per game this year, and 1 less tackle. That's 15 points right there. You know what I mean? So if those transitional numbers are true, he really should go back up because he gets that extra uncontested because he's not at the stoppage all the time. But the thing is, I feel like the way he's going to score at the stoppages is going to be affected as well. So, I feel like he might be getting to 1 or 2 less tackles per game, which is 8 points. Yep.
And then also maybe 1 or 2 less of those, take it out the ruck and handball it type thing, because that's the way he only does that by engaging, using his body and not jumping. So I think you're going to lose basically all of those. So it could be like a 10-point.
So it could be a 95.
Well, but the thing is, like I said, he makes it back up in the transition. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just kind of stagnates. Maybe stays at around the 100 mark, but I think it might mean that the days of being like a 110 plus guy and the kind of scoring that he averaged towards the end of last season doesn't come through as much. So like I said, I think what he loses on the stoppage stuff is probably made up on the few extra transitional stuff he gets in the way of kicks and marks and stuff, because that really dropped last season as well. But yeah, I think it kind of causes it to stagnate more than anything. I think just the issue is, I think a lot of people are expecting Cherry to go back to being a 110, 115 kind of guy, and I just don't see that happening, that's all.
That's a really good analysis.
Yeah. Oh, hopefully that's the
because I've been unsure about Cherry, especially obviously looking at classic and stuff. He's going to be quite highly owned, and it's just sort of.
Well, that's the thing. People don't realize how much just a mark, a kick, and a tackle can affect an average per game. One of those things each is a 10, 12 point drop. If you're in a mark as well. So it's it can be a big swing just with the littlest kind of factor. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, we're gonna have to watch some games, stuff like that, and it could be all proven wrong. And the AFL might go real hot on it for the first 6 weeks and then back off, because we've seen that in the past as well. Yep. So who knows what's actually going to happen. But let's actually get stuck into analysing a few players here. So as always, we go through our undervalued, our breakouts, our stashes, and we'll talk about a couple rookies that are there that might be good value long term. But the undervalued, the first one is Sean Darcy. He averaged 64 last season. Do you think he still offers value to coaches out there?
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Because, so they've got 5 on the bench now. So my initial thoughts were, okay, he's just going to be that low-tog guy, come on for Jackson. But I'm hearing this preseason, Jackson's going to play completely as a midfielder.
Wow.
He hasn't done any ruck stuff this preseason.
Wow,
apparently.
Okay, that's bold.
So, obviously they're going to play the 2 rucks, but does his percentage go up a little bit more?
Yeah.
Can he get higher? I still think Jackson's going to be the main guy, but Darcy did come on as that rotation, and then Jackson went as a midfielder. But if Jackson's not doing much ruck work, I don't know. There could be a bit of value.
Yeah.
At 64.
There's a couple of things. So, Darcy is on a big contract, isn't he? It's quite a decent one.
And good money too.
They're not playing him in the 2s. They're going to be playing him in the 1. So they got to figure out how they kind of work these 2 together. The other thing, though, is Darcy is basically one of those players we just described that might be less effective at the stoppages and things like that because he can't jump as high and all that sort of stuff. He's a bit more of a body type ruckman as well. So it could go. Genuinely it could go either way. I think if it was last year's rules, he'd be fine. He'd be back to where he kind of would be. I don't know if it'd be, I don't think if he'd be a huge 100 plus average kind of guy, but he could be a handy 80 kind of guy. If they use Jackson in the way they're describing and he comes back in. But again, I think he might lose out and go the other way and might stagnate a bit. So maybe he's a 75 kind of guy.
Yeah.
Probably better than a 65, 64 kind of guy. I agree. But that might be where he gets to. And that can be valuable. If you're one of those players that likes to just leave rucks to the end and, stack up on midfielders and whatever and you're drafting a new team, I don't think it's the worst play to just take him with your 18th pick. And he's the guy and take a 75 because you've made up points in other positions by not drafting a ruck too early. But yeah, I just don't know what his kind of ceiling is going to be with new rules and with the makeup of Jackson as well. Let's go to Matt Flynn. He averaged 78.7 last season. Do you think he's still the number 1 ruck at West Coast? And do you reckon he goes around that 80 mark again?
I think so. It's either him or it's Bailey Williams, right? That is sort of there.
Williams seemed to fall off the radar a bit last year, though.
And Williams can play that sort of forward role as a backer.
So can Cooper Duff Tyler, apparently.
Yes.
Tyler.
I'm pretty keen on him, actually. I think Flynn, he's probably just that 75, maybe to 80. Does he play every game? I think he did end up getting about 19 games or something. He was in and out a little bit at the start of the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he probably does the same thing. I think, as you said, Cooper Duff Tyler, I think he's the one in time. But we see with Rucks, it could be a 4 or 5 year wait on him. So maybe Flynn and Williams sort of just are there biding the time until he's ready, I think.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way. Even if you've got someone like Flynn, you're just waiting 3 or 4 years until Duff Tyler takes over as number 1 anyway, because he looks like a bit of a unicorn and a bit of a freak. So I'd probably be avoiding, but they're a good stopgap as long as you've got something else in your team that's waiting to come through and can replace him when the inevitable does happen. What about Kieran Briggs? He only averaged 70 last season. Do you think he can get back to that 80 plus average next season? Or is he, again, one of those players that's we're going to be affected by these rules? And
I'm so unsure about Briggs because he's still young, and he still should be the number 1 ruck. But just last year, I know he got concussed early, but he just didn't give me much confidence with the way he was. He just looked slow, and he looked, I don't know, he just didn't. He was having low time on ground, whether or not something with the preseason was carrying an injury or something. Madden did come in and play games. Riccardi actually came along a bit more, and they started to use him a bit more. I think 70 average, I think he does improve. He's done 90 in the past. I just don't really see him being that 90 guy anymore. I think maybe he can get to 80. And I think he could be serviceable. But I don't know. I'm just so unsure about him now. Just watching him last year, he just didn't give me much confidence. And could Madden overtake him?
Yeah.
Or could they play 2 rucks?
Well, he could be one of those ones that fits the profile if the changing of the score, the changing of the ruck and the way the position's played. He could be one that fits the profile better. I reckon Madden could be as well. So, and he's been dominating VFL for a couple of years now as well. So that's one thing to think about. I'm kind of with you. Probably goes. I reckon he is a little bit better than a 70 average because I think the injury affected was there, but I don't think he maybe gets back to that 90 plus of, yesteryear, the year before that. Just because of the way the game's going to be played. The Mark Pitnet, Liam Reedy situation, what's your read on it? Do you reckon there's a solo or do you reckon they play in tandem or what's the go? I've got them both in my best 23 that I put out this week.
I think they start together.
Yeah.
I think that's how they go. I know Pitnet has a bit of an injury, I think, with his larynx. Yeah, larynx.
Yeah.
I think they start in tandem. Maybe during the year, if it's not working, maybe they'll go solo. But obviously, Reedy probably provides that support up forward. I think they're a bit smaller with some of those guys they brought in, like your Haywards and Ainsworth and stuff, and they've lost Kerno. So I think, and TDK, obviously. So I think they're going to need him up there. Scoring-wise, what that means with the split, it's probably not great, is it?
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, they need one to ruck solo. Like, in the ideal world, you want Liam Reedy rucking solo because he's listed as a forward, and even if he just only scores around a 70 kind of average, you take that for a forward would be super bloody handy because there'll be a odd 100 plus score and everything in there. So that's like the ideal world. But yeah, I reckon it probably does end up as a tandem thing. I do think that they will trial at some stage throughout the year them solo each. Like, I think they'll give Pitnet a bit of a run solo, especially if they're not, because I don't expect them to be in finals really contention. So I reckon they might do a bit of a stage where they'll give Pitnet maybe 3 or 4 weeks as number one, or they might rotate them in and out, or Reedy will get a chance. And like, those weeks are going to be really good when you've got them, especially Reedy because he's listed as that forward. But yeah, I think for the most part of the season, or at least the start, we're probably going to see them ruck in tandem, and it's going to be pretty gross. That's all.
Yeah, you are right though. Reedy does probably have the most upside.
Yeah.
As a forward, so maybe pick him up.
Yeah, I'd be picking him up late. It'd be interesting to see actually where he goes. He's going in that ADP data at the moment. I can quickly check on that. Or if he's in the top 200.
And like Pitnet, he's like, is he 30? I'd say.
Yeah, I think he's just hit 30. Yeah. So hold on, I've got the ADP trends up here. I can tell you exactly where Reedy is going in the drafts at the moment. So he's at 100. Pick 200 at the moment, around there.
Yeah.
So probably the right mark for him. If you can take him around there, he might be a bit of a handy pickup, given that he's listed as a forward. The other one I think that people are sleeping on a little bit is Darcy Fort. The Sam Draper is all the rage in fantasy circles right now, and it's probably because he's listed as a forward.
Yeah.
It's a pretty handy thing to have, especially because it does look like they've recruited him to be the number one ruck. But is anyone out there trusting Sam Draper to remain fit for the entire season? I'm not.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest questions.
Yeah.
I think Draper long term they want him to be number one.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Like Darcy Fort, he's probably not the worst guy to pick up if there is an injury. I think they're going to try and start tandem because like he's coming off an Achilles.
Yeah, I've got them both in my best 23.
Yeah. And I do think hopefully if Draper does stay fit, maybe in a year he will take over. But
yeah, I think Fort probably presents a way better than his 69 average this season, because I just feel like there will be a period where he gets some time rucking solo, and could be a pretty good
80, 85.
I reckon so as well. In the games where he's not rucking in tandem anyway. So yeah, I think people are kind of just thinking Draper's the number one guy, but I'm just not 100% sold on that. That's all. Fort could come in and do a bit of a job and score okay in AFL Fantasy. We'll move on to some of the breakouts. I find the Essendon ruck situation pretty intriguing, at least to start the season, because like Nick Bryan looks like he's the guy long term. I think that's the general consensus, but he's out for the first month or so of the season, maybe even 2, depending on how well he recovers from that ACL. So it comes down to essentially, is Vigo Vicentini the next guy in, or is Lockie Blackiston, which a lot of the Essendon fans seem to think he's the next guy in as a ruckman. Mid-season draftee, looked pretty promising last year, but was more of a key defender. But the word is he's been training as a ruck all pre-season. So what do you think? Who do you think gets the gig while Nick Bryan is out? Is it Vicentini or is it Blackiston?
I think it's Blackiston. Just from what I've seen on socials and just photos, he looks like he's going to take the role. I am very hot on Bryan. I think Bryan is, like, I'm going to try and target him so hard in so many keepers because I think he's going to be the guy.
Yep.
They're saying, like you said, about maybe gather rounds, so round 5.
Yeah.
But who knows?
We get to see him live.
Yeah, we get to see him live. I think Bryan is we'll do our ruck ranks later, but I've sort of got him quite high. I think Blackiston is the ruck. It's just, do they go with 2? Do they go Vicentini and Blackiston, or do they just run with, they do have Peter Wright down there.
Yeah.
So as a chop out. I could be wrong on this, but I think Blackiston's the ruck.
Yeah, I do. I really don't know. Like, I didn't think, like, people are knocking Vigo because that game against GWS, he got subbed out and all that sort of stuff. But his first game against Freo wasn't that bad, you know, like, especially coming up again. I didn't think actually Darcy was playing, he just came up against Luke Jackson. But it probably worked for him because it was like athletic ruck versus athletic ruck, or tall, lanky ruck, really. Coming up against Briggs is probably a different story, you know what I mean? Like, for someone like Vigo. So it might be situational, depending on what the opposition ruck is like. But yeah, like Blackiston Wright being in the same team, like, that can work, I think. It's just that you're kind of going with two non-traditional rucks, and do you want to try to give your midfield best first youths, you know, the ball. And if Vigo, like, the rules kind of help Vigo because he's a bit more of that taller, lanky guy, he might be the one. But yeah, but like you said, it's all reports, and looks through social media and all the training reports we're getting that they're really training up Lockie Blackiston to be the number one ruck. So, well, for the first part of the season anyway. So the thing is, like, both Vigo and Lockie Blackiston are going to be irrelevant by about round 6 anyway. So it's not really something that you're going to pick up for a long-term thing in keep leagues. It's more so that if you own Nick Bryan, you've got to pick up the backup guy, the handcuff guy.
Yes.
And the hard part is Blackiston doesn't have ruck status at the moment. So these are the worst, because, like, I had Cherry for like years, a couple years. And you just knew that if he got injured, there was no player listed as a ruck for North Melbourne that would come on and replace him. So you couldn't handcuff. And I feel like this situation might be very similar for Essendon, which is going to be...
That's a fair point.
Annoying.
Might have to
for
try
owners.
someone like a... Maybe that's where you get that Reedy or...
Yeah, you're going to have to try to get
Darcy
someone,
or
like
someone
that to,
else.
cover you early, because otherwise you're going to have a donut for a while. We talked about Reedy above. The other one is, like, Ned Moore was, like, we talked about at the start as well, but do you think there's a world where he comes in and is the better option to Witts?
Potentially, because Witts is 33.
Yeah.
The rules probably don't really affect him. They have to transition at some point.
Yeah, this year might be the year.
He's 23. He did sign a big, like, 4-year deal, I think.
Yeah.
Which seemed odd, but
yeah,
obviously...
if he's going to be playing in the twos, yeah.
Yeah, it seemed odd at the time. So they obviously want him there, but, I mean, we'll talk about maybe a bit later some rookie, but they got a guy called Ethan Reid.
Yeah.
Who might go ahead of Moyle. So
I feel like Reid is the better ruck forward option, and, like, they'll play a ruck, like, genuine ruck, and then Reid is the ruck forward, because he actually provides a fair bit as a key forward as well. Like, I was very hot on Reid when he first got drafted as a ruckman, but the more I've watched him, I think he can kind of work as both a ruck forward, and they're usually the worst for fantasy, really. So I think they will kind of persist with Moyle. Like you said, they gave him a 4-year deal. It seems weird that they never intend to play him.
Yeah,
if that's the case.
And he was happy to bide his time. I think he said.
I went to the North Melbourne Gold Coast game in the Barossa last year, and, like, we were sitting because I got contacts at North Melbourne, so we had very good seats, and we're sitting right next to where the Gold Coast players and all the actual players who weren't playing was. And Moyle just seemed like he was sitting kind of by himself, which was kind of funny. And he just seemed so happy to be there. It was fine. Like, you know, like, he's like, yeah, I've been, each week I get to go on a trip with the boys.
Yeah.
He's just like, seemed fine. So
signed his deal.
So no. I think he will come in eventually. He seems content. He didn't seem mad or upset that he wasn't playing. You know what I mean?
That's a good assessment.
Yeah. Anyway, so I do think there's a world where they start to use Ned Moyle a little bit more this season, and I think probably by 2027 you'll probably see Ned Moyle as the number one ruck, I think. So, yeah. Onto some stash options. So, looking at some guys that might not break out this year, but guys that might be okay in the future. We've identified a few, and there's a bit of a question that comes later about backup rucks who could take over eventually. But we'll start with Samson Ryan. Do you think he's the next guy in after Nank? Nank's getting on a bit.
Yeah, it's so hard with Tigers. I've never actually thought about who's the next guy. Nank is, I was looking at this morning, Nank's 31, so what's he got, maybe a couple years?
Yeah, like people like I think like people like Gawn, I feel like are less kind of affected because he's just like a runner. Like he's not huge and like thick like Nank is, where Nank's like a crash and bash kind of guy. And those contact guys seem to be the ones that the guys that take a lot of contact seems to be the guys that get injured and slow down a lot quicker. So Nank probably could deteriorate a bit more, but I still think he's probably got 2 or 3 years left in him. So,
and I think who do Richmond have? Samson Ryan is. I didn't realise that he's actually, I think, 25 years old. So he's not like he's a kid. He's and as looking at rucks, they usually take about 5 to 6 years.
Hayes Brown's 25 as well, but he hasn't played. I don't think he played last season. He only played in like preseason games and stuff like that. It does seem like Samson Ryan is the next guy that takes over. Unless
they can draft someone or they trade for someone. But I think right now he looks like the guy.
And sometimes these stash options, particularly with rucks, like we don't really mean sometimes that they're going to be good scorers. It's more like they're going to get opportunity soon, and you never know what happens with opportunity. Players come out of nowhere, that sort of stuff. So we'll have to wait and see with that one. The other one kind of in a similar boat, I reckon, is Lachlan McAndrew, like we talked about with Rob. I reckon I've said for the last 5 years, like, Rob needs to go. Like, remember the kick in the semi-final last year that came off his shin?
That photo.
Yeah.
It's just,
if this guy can't jump, can't ruck, can't win hit outs, and he can't kick, what's the point of having him in your team, you know? So I feel like someone like McAndrew might be given a chance, but maybe not this year, but I reckon after this year, unless they recruit someone else. Because, like, Crows didn't really make a secret of. They tried to get Draper. So it feels like they want to get rid of Rob. It's just like they can't yet because they haven't got anyone. But if he does take that next step development, sounds like he's given Rob a bath in the preseason at the moment, just given the changes to the rules.
Yeah, because he's probably more athletic and taller. And
yeah. So he might be a good late pickup. I'll check where McAndrew is actually going in the ADP at the moment. It would be very late. Spelled McAndrew wrong. McAndrew. Here we go. He's undrafted in most leagues. So, yeah, it could be a very, very good late pickup there, I think. So, yeah. The next one, I only reason he's got this guy, Cal Guerin from Essendon. Had big raps last year. He's a bit of a freak. Can play key forward, can play as a ruckman as well. But he had a huge, for a ruckman, he did big fantasy numbers as a junior. So I got Cal Guerin there. I just don't see how he actually gets an opportunity in the next year or two. That's all.
With just for the Essendon Rucks.
Yeah. He probably comes in
an injury
probably comes in as a key forward first of all, and will probably be terrible at fantasy scoring.
The worst case, they've got other guy. Yeah.
You got any other stash options you want to discuss?
Well, I'm looking at Geelong. So Stanley's 35.
Yeah.
We sort of wrote him off last year, but he did come in. Blitzhufson's 35. Conway has always been the guy that's been talked about, but I just think like he had more surgery again in September, and he's just with his back and just different things like that. So now they're talking up a guy called Mitch Edwards. And I think he's had decent VFL numbers.
Yeah, I'm just getting him up.
But I read a article and they said, he should get games in this year in his third year.
Averaged 53 last year.
So not
great,
amazing.
but did have a couple good games. In his last game, he had a 91. So
yeah, he might be a bit too raw. But yeah, anyway, in the code, I was reading a Code Sports article and they sort of said he could get a game. But they've also got SDK they tried last year, so who knows what they do there. They went for Marshall last year. Maybe Marshall just comes over again next year. So, but I just think that situation there at the Cats, they probably need to do something in the next year or two. But Stanley and Blitzhufs can sort of fill it for this year. Yeah,
I think that's probably... like in my best 23s, I had Stanley and Blitzhufs still in there.
Yeah.
If Conway can get fit, they'll give him an opportunity. It's just a big if, you know. Like, it just doesn't seem to be happening. But, you know, back Geelong and their medical staff in to get him right eventually, I think. And then I think he takes over. But Mitch Edwards is probably one to watch just in case that doesn't happen. On to the rookies. The obvious one's Cooper Duff-Tytler.
He's going to be a gun, I reckon.
Do you watch his underage highlights? Just the way he moves around the ground, can use the footy, like absolute.
He's freak. Like, to me, he's like Tim English, Jackson together.
Yeah. No.
And he just looks like we say Rucks take about 5 years. I think he at West Coast say 4 or 5 years.
Well, again, this is the type of thing with these rules, man. If like they're not getting crashed and bashed into at the contest, and they're relying solely on jumping and tapping, if that actually eventuates with the rule changes, could fast track a few of these guys as well. So that's
a good point.
Something else to think about as well. But he's the only one that real that's in there. I think Lewis Emmett was the other one in this draft. I think as well. Had a bit of a fantasy nous, but there's not a lot of rucks in the draft pool this year that have like a bit of fantasy pedigree. That's all. So, but if you want to check them all out, you can go to the Draftee Analysis Guide that's available for members on our website, and we can go from there. All right, let's get into the listener questions, and then we can wrap this up. I've added quite a few in there to kind of drag this podcast out a bit because it looked like we only had about 10 or so players to discuss for the whole podcast. So we've got a few questions here that we try to get through and help the listeners out. This one's from a bloke called HK Doss. That name sounds familiar. Dossy.
He's getting in the keepers.
I think I'm looking here at my recording session here. I've still got Doss as the second track. I've got F and
I'm
Doss.
on there.
Yeah, because I just never change it. It's just a template that I use. So it's still sitting here in my recording session. But he's saying, what would you consider a reasonable return for Rowan Marshall, or is holding him the only option? Asking for a friend. I think that friend's name is Doss. Oh, geez. I looked at my ranks and I've got him outside of my top 100, Rowan Marshall. closely. I think he's about 108. But the guys that are around that kind of area are guys like Charlie Curnow, Harry Mackay, Jeremy Cameron. Like,
oh no,
maybe that's what I see his value as, just until he gets some certainty on the roles.
I just think he's still good value because if he does snag the forward status, he could be all right.
Yeah,
and then if he gets a trade,
that's the big one. Yeah,
and then he's got forward status,
yeah.
future value, and then he'll be a forward maybe in 2027 as a number one ruck.
Yeah.
So I think it's a risk, but I think he still has value this year. Don't know, but
yeah,
even if you go back to like Paddy Ryder and him, he still averaged all right with a forward status.
I think holding is the only option. I think because like my big thing is just never trade a player at their lowest value. Like, and he's probably at his lowest he's ever been right now, just because with the uncertainty, and that might change so much in the next couple months, the way we kind of see things unfold. Like I had a listener, sorry if his name's blanked me, he will know who I'm talking about. He's messaged me on Instagram this week, saying that he was at St Kilda training this week, and just saying that TD Guy is the ruck, like he's the man.
TDK,
yeah, he's the man.
We did go hard for him.
Yeah, and absolutely dominating all the match sim and all the training and that sort of stuff. And it looks like Rowan Marshall is going to be more forward than he is in the ruck. But again, like you said, like that means his value might dip this year, but he might ask for a trade and he might go somewhere else and he might end up at Geelong next year. And
he's a forward.
And as a forward.
That's why the game, I'm looking at targeting him, and I'm trying to try and get him in keepers if I can.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea, actually. Yeah, because he might get that forward status. I hope the guy who owns him... Actually, I know the guy who owns him like, will not be listening right now. So
yeah. But like years ago, like he had it with Paddy Ryder. And that was, I think was Ross coaching then? I don't know. But
I can't remember.
Maybe. But he's done it before. They seem to want him there. Who knows if Max King, all that.
Yeah. Yeah, and even last year they did it a bit early. They had brought in who was the other right one?
Harry Boyd.
Yeah, that's right. And they kind of used him a little bit, and it looked like they were trying to play this kind of setup. And it wasn't too bad. Like he still kicked a few goals and things like that when he was in those positions. But I reckon holding is the best option, and wait for that value to rise either this year when TDK gets injured or he surprises a few people, or next year when he asks for a trade and he has forward status going into that. Maybe the best kind of deal. It's going to be a hell of a lot more than you get from trading him right now. Anyway. More targeted, 18 teams out of which will have a 2 ruck setup majority of the time, 70% of their games. So he's got Freo and West Coast. What other clubs do you think? We can probably go through them a little bit. Like, I don't reckon Crows will go dual. I reckon they'll either go one of Rob or McAndrew.
Yep.
Brisbane probably go dual.
I think they do because
Draper can play forward and that sort of stuff. Collingwood won't. They've got no backup ruck. Carlton probably will.
Yep.
Essendon probably will to start off with anyway.
Yep, until Brian comes in, I think.
Yep. And then Freo, they've already mentioned. Geelong, I don't know if you count it as dual with blitzers, but he kind of pinch hits. But neither of them are going to be high-scoring guys anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think GWS will. They'll go one or the other, singular. Gold Coast will go Reed back up and then one of Moyle and Witts, I think. Hawthorn won't go dual, do you reckon?
Well,
Meat can go forward, can't he?
I think it's best that they have one, but training, again, this is all pre-season reports, they're trialling it. But I mean, every team's probably trialling 2 rucks with the new rules.
Yeah,
and
that's
the 5 on bench.
Yeah, that's true. Melbourne won't because their backup rucks are too green, so they'll just keep going. I don't think they'll bring Campbell or anything in like that. North Melbourne won't.
No.
Port, there's a good chance.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yep. There's apparently Sweet's been sort of doing some forward stuff.
Yeah, okay, yeah. It's actually supposed to have Sweet on the podcast, but he had to bail last minute, unfortunately, for the listeners. So, yeah. But that's all right. I could have asked him. It still might happen. It still might happen. Like, we haven't really discussed whether we're going to make it up or not. So, yeah, well, if I get a chance, I'll try to ask him. Could probably just actually message him. But I don't know how much he likes to give away of tactical stuff. That's the thing. Yeah, as you can imagine, you don't want to give away your team secrets. And then Richmond won't, not yet anyway. St Kilda will definitely ruck tandem. Sydney won't, Grundy. West Coast probably will, but Duff Tyler will be the backup guy, and he probably plays more forward, you imagine, to start off with.
What do you think he scores as, like, if you say he's 70% forward?
This year?
Low.
Yeah. Because West Coast aren't getting the ball in. Yeah. 50s, that sort of stuff. Yeah. Don't think it's going to be big, but 3 years' time, I think it's going to be, one of the best rucks. Yeah, kind of going around. And then Western Bulldogs won't either, like English is only going there, they'll just pinch it with either Lob or Darcy in the back. So out of that, like, who are the teams that have solo rucks really? So Adelaide, you reckon, Collingwood, GWS.
Gold Coast,
yeah.
probably Hawks, yeah.
Yeah, Melbourne. North Melbourne. Yeah. Anyway, so that's probably a good way to have a look at it. We'll kind of go through a bit more stuff similar to that in a sec when we get some other questions come through. Draft 5 wants to know who averages higher this season, Witts or Marshall? I'd probably say pretty similar. I reckon
I'm going Marshall just because Witts, is he in the team? But also...
when he plays, I reckon he'll score quite similar.
But also, like, Gold Coast are probably going for a flag.
Yeah.
So do they just like go, Witts just like take it all this year?
Yeah.
And then Moyle comes, I don't know.
Retire after that.
Like, just, they probably need all they've traded, they got track in, like maybe... It is pretty close to that.
Yeah, it is pretty close. I think probably Marshall as well. But yeah, I don't think it'll be a huge difference. I'm thinking we might be like a 85 to 90 for Marshall and then like an 80 to 85 for Witts when he plays type thing. What did Witts average last year actually? I feel like...
I think it was 89.
Was it that high, was it? Oh, maybe.
Yeah, I had him in a league.
Yeah, 89, you're right.
5.
I reckon it might be pretty similar then. It might be both around the 90 mark. Yeah, anyway... AFL Fantasy 15, what's Essendon Port's ruck situation looking like at the moment? Seen a bit on Vigo over Sweet. I think they got Dante. And seen a bit on Vigo.
Yeah.
Over Sweet. I think I meant Dante maybe.
Yeah.
And Brian. So I'm wondering, do both Dante and Vigo play at the start of the season?
Potentially.
I reckon,
like,
yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
I'm not writing off... I know that we've seen all the Blackers and stuff, but I'm not writing off Vigo. Like, I could see, like... them just getting absolutely smashed in the ruck, trying to do it with Blackston and Wright being little bit. I guess Wright's 200 centimeters, but he's not really a ruckman. You know what I mean? And they bring in like a dedicated ruckman like Vicentini in eventually. I could see them both playing. I think the big question is, do Port ruck tandem, do Essendon ruck tandem, and I think they both are. So yeah. Potentially Sweet is on his own. We really don't know how Josh Carr's going to play it.
Oh, like we've got like. Who would you say our backup is? Like, would Lord pitch hit if he's in the side?
Yeah, that's a good point.
If we did run a Sweet just by himself, we've got Whitlock. I don't know if he's ready to do a chop out, but maybe in the forward line.
And that's the other thing as well. Will and because we probably should have talked about this at the top though, but like, will they do that key chop out thing, or will it kind of be because they're not waiting for rucks to get to the contest? Will one player be the forward ruck, one player be the midfield ruck, one player be the defensive ruck. Like Port, you could potentially do it if you play two and you use just Aaliyah in the back lines or something. Like that might happen just to kind of make sure that there's always a ruckman at the subwages. Like, or is it even that important to have a tall guy as your ruck, or is it just important to have someone make a contest and rove to the losing taps? Like, there's so many questions that we need to see it happen.
We need to see it. Then pre-season, once we see a game.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to get a way better understanding of how it all works. So yeah, Corzab7 wants to know, is TDK worth keeping in a keeper league? I'd say yes.
Definitely.
Like I said, I think he is going to be the number one ruck. I don't think it's like a 70-30 split or anything like that, but it's probably a 60-40 type thing. And I think TDK probably gets the 60. I reckon.
I'm still like TDK and Marshall. I'm still keen. I still think they have good value in keeper. One gets a trade. They're both going to be elite.
And they both could be forwards the year after.
They could be forwards.
Yeah.
TDK is so athletic with the rules. He's definitely. I'm looking at trying to get these guys cheap in my keeper.
Yeah.
And trying to say, they're dual ruck, they're irrelevant, but I think they have relevant in the future.
You're not getting them cheap now. You mentioned it here that we're listening. It's done. That's the worst part about this. Like in your own league,
my mates listen.
Same. It cooks you so much because they know exactly what you want, what you're thinking, and you get no value. That's my excuse for not winning more flags in my league anyway, and always losing the grand final. Anyway, who is the biggest ruck riser this year? He's got a few names like guys that have fallen back, like Briggs, or is Sweet the next guy up, or Reedy who's coming in, or Darcy or someone else. I don't mind the Reedy call if he gets a number one, but I don't think that's happening. I think Nick Bryan, once he comes back, as long as he returns fit and fit and firing.
Nick Bryan, I'm taking him. I don't want to give too much away, but
you're not taking him. I'm not taking him. I don't want him.
I'm very hot on him. I think you just put all your chips in on him.
Yeah, I am too. And he just looks like a fantasy type. And he looks like a gun.
If you go on his scores, last year he was scoring well with low tog in tandem.
Yeah,
and he's into his 5th year now. I think he's ready to go. And obviously, Essendon with the trading, they could have got another ruck.
Yeah,
they could have maybe got someone else or let Goldie go on, but I think they've given him faith. So
yeah,
He's 24. Yep.
Yeah, so look at his game like here. Like if you take that 11 out of his scoring, which drops his average right down to like 57. He's gone 81, 72, 67.
And that's low tog.
Yeah, very low time on ground as well. So yeah, I think you're right with that one. I think if he can just get fit and get on the park, he's probably going to be low tog to start off with, but once he gets it up there, could be right. Anyways, Tomo wants to know, this may be too long-winded, but let's give it a go. I'm contending and looking to bring in English. His current ruck is Knack. Thinking of trading Nick Martin or Hayden Young or Will Day. The new rules have me wondering how affected English will be and how it impacts a trade like this. Keen on your thoughts if you have time. Cheers.
Ooh.
I don't think it affects English at all, to be honest. I think English is probably one of the most least affected like this. So a couple of years ago, and thanks to Vamp for pointing this out to me as well, the guy who wrote the article about the Rucks earlier, like he had a shit year like 2 years ago, right? And he started a bit poorly last year, but he came home like a house on fire type thing. And it was to do with the change to the ruck rule where you could straight arm and block a player out. He just couldn't deal with that, essentially. And it felt like he spent the whole year kind of getting stronger, getting better at doing that. And it kind of just didn't affect him by the end. And now we're getting to a point where the players can't cross the line at the centre bounce. So they can't really do it to him anymore. They can't strong arm block type thing. So he can just jump over the top and still win the hit outs. And he's not a big... Like he doesn't win big hit outs anyway. Like it's more around the ground is his thing, and that the ruck rules don't affect him there. So I think he's just going to play like that extra midfielder, like he does.
He's taken kick-outs before.
Yeah, mental.
Like he can do it. He's a gun, and I think he's in that. He's mentioned Nick Martin and Will Day who are injured.
Yeah.
So I think go hard for English. Depends if you want to get rid of those injured guys. I think trading one of them for that is a fair trade.
I think Nick Martin
would be going
is.
English.
Yeah, I don't even know. Nick Martin is. I would not trade English for... I would not take Will Day for English.
Exactly.
Like, Nick Martin, you probably could. I wouldn't take Hayden Young. I would take Nick Martin, and maybe you might have to trade a couple. Like, you might have to
go Nankin, Nick Martin,
yeah, that's what. Yeah, if that's what... if that is the plan, that could be the plan, actually. Yeah, and double up to get one back, and that could work. But yeah, you're going to have to go pretty hard to get him, because I think he's going to be... I think English is... I've got him as my number one ranked this season. So, yeah. All right. Bears Bar wants to know who is the replacement for each ruck at the moment. So, I guess we'll go through the list again like we did before. So, Crows is McAndrew would be the first replacement. I guess Fort would be the replacement for Draper if he doesn't. I think Draper's probably in the number one role right now, just on hype. But he could be coming straight in. I reckon Steen might be the guy who... was it Oscar Steen?
Yes.
Yeah. For Collingwood might be the next one in unless they don't...
They haven't got much, do they?
No, they got no ruck depth at all. Especially with Cox gone as well. Makes it a bit interesting. Reading Pitnett, I don't even know who's number one there. So one of those. Reading being the younger one will just be the long term, I think.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully he can be the long term.
The Essendon, like they're all young, so...
I think
Brian's just going to be the next 10 years, probably.
I think so. Yeah. And then they just have chop out with Wright and stuff like that.
It's kind of same with Fremantle. Like Luke Jackson's 24?
24, yeah.
Yeah, so like he's going to be around for another 7-8 years. So don't have to really worry there. Conway's probably the next guy in for Geelong if he can get fit. But you've got Mitch Edwards as potentially long term. Just
as a maybe, yeah, if Conway's can't do it. But I think they just get a trade. Everyone goes to Geelong.
Yeah. Then you got Madden. It's the next one at GWS. Moyle at Gold Coast, I think. Maybe Reed, but I still think they play tandem and Moyle comes in. Hawthorn, I guess Reeves. They got really nothing else beyond that. Melbourne have Tom Campbell, who's old as well. So he's probably going to be Heath and White.
Yeah, Heath, they traded for him. He's 23. Maybe.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
to use him next. Yeah, so Campbell Heath, is that his name?
Max Heath.
Max Heath, sorry.
Tom Campbell.
Who's Campbell Heath? He used to play for Port.
Yes, he did, yeah.
Tyler Goad is probably the North Melbourne.
See, I think he's a gun. He's behind Cherry. How's he going to get in? He's 20.
Could he replace him as a more athletic type? Who knows? Nah, I don't think that's happening to Cherry.
Apparently, nah.
Then Port, Vicentini, and Sweet's pretty old actually. He's like 28. Yeah, but Vicentini is a bit younger.
22, I think.
Yeah, so he'll probably be the long-term replacement. Samson Ryan's the only guy on the list that looks capable at Richmond, really. Then I think TDK is only 26. Marshall's close to 30, is that right?
Yeah, 30.
The only other really guy I can think of is Isaac Killer. But he's playing.
He might be more position. Of that chop-out forward craft guy.
Yeah,
that's just sort of there as a chop-out. I think TDK is the...
TDK's
26. He's still so young.
He's got plenty of time ahead of him. Laddams is the next guy for Sydney, but they got Will Green, who was a fairly high pick, wasn't he?
Yeah, in the 20s.
Yeah, he's probably going to take over after Grundy. West Coast Duff Titler seems obvious. Western Bulldogs, like if English goes down, it falls on like Darcy or Lob. This probably Lob.
Probably like you probably don't want Darcy
out of the forward line.
Out of the forward line.
Yeah,
he could just kick a bag.
They picked up Lewis Emmett in this year's draft, and I think he's probably the long-term guy for that.
Just a bit raw, I guess, for now.
Anyways, we got 50 minutes out of that podcast. That's not too bad. I thought it was going to be way short. We've got no extra stuff to talk about. So I think the extras is just going to be, we'll go through our ruck ranks and debate them and see where we've got them. It'd be an extra 10 minutes. So if you want to get access to the extra kind of bonus episode, I don't really know what to call it, whether it's extra or bonus, whatever. But sign up as a member and you can check it out there. There's a link in the description below. But Geordie, where can our listeners check you out if they want to do so?
Yeah, just Jordan DeSena on X. I'll probably try and get to Port Training next couple of weeks. Might do a few tweets, but also on the Pod. So if you are interested, to mention
at the top, we should have. Sorry,
that's all right. Pod.
You're a new co-host on the Pod this year.
Yep. So if you're into classic, you can jump over onto Pod, and we just started to do some of our rankings, and it's got I think the best coaches on there for classic. So. Lots of hats on there from Holmesy and Harmy, and you got Louis as well, who's
always around the mark.
Yeah, he's a guest on this show as well. So jump over that, and I'm pretty keen for all that this year. Yeah,
Louis actually been texting me. Louis texted me, I think, about 7 o'clock this morning saying pub, ? I was like, what now? He's like, no, met the Savo. I think we'll try to catch up with him for a beer if I can find the time this afternoon. Awesome. But if not, I might over the weekend. But it's a very good podcast with a bunch of legends on there. Been talking to Holmesy a bit lately on the X as well, on Twitter as well. So good legends on that show. So make sure you check it all out. Get around our stuff, Keeper League Pod on Facebook's going off at the moment. A lot of engagement on there with some of the. Do you know what? I think you can judge a fan's supporter base by how active they are on Facebook, like their age profile. The Crows and the Brisbane supporters go off on Facebook.
You've had a few things go nuts. That century one that you did, the 25 of the century.
Yeah, that's right.
People thought it was real life,
not fantasy. Even though it says fantasy everywhere, all over the comments.
And then you had you had another one recently as well.
I had text not in my best 23 for the Crows, and that didn't. Crows fans were not happy with that. But didn't they say in his re-signing, they said something about he understands his role and he's there for development. That kind of indicates to me that he's not really going to be playing every game type thing. So especially when come finals, I don't know if they'll be playing him, but we'll wait and see. So Facebook, we're on there. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, wherever. We're there. You'll find us. I'm doing stuff on most of the places. Make sure you sign up as a member if you want to support the podcast and keep it going into the future. Make sure you get around the Keeper Fantasy platform. Make sure all your leagues are on the Keeper Fantasy platform because it is the best one for keep leagues. Anyways, if you're a member or want to become a member, stick around and we'll talk about some ruck ranks. You can check that extra episode out on the website. Anyways, thanks, Geordie.
No worries.
We'll talk to you again. We won't have you on again this preseason. You're going overseas.
In a couple of weeks, Yep. I'll be back, though, for round one.
All right, I might have to have you on post round one or round two or something like that.
Early on's great.
All right, cool.
And I'll be, basically opening round of round one.
Yeah.
That's where all my drafting will be.
Yeah, sweet. Cool. So we'll be in prime position to talk about that. All right, cool. All right, thanks, listeners. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon. See ya.